Hello everyone. No doubt you're a bit hot and sweltering in this room like me. Well, thank you all for coming today. And so I'm going to start by just giving an example of the kind of things really we face in Britain. And I'm going to quote some correspondence. I hope a swarm of Asian hornets fly up and sting you. Hopefully your vagina will prolapse along with your rectum and you will spend your last days in a puddle of your own excrement. You dirty, posh, white S-word. I hope your little boy is molested and raped by refugees and Hamas will come after you lot. Now, the person who sent the first one and the second one, the first person was let off by the police, the second person was never found. My office got graffitied telling me to kill myself, for perpetrator not found. I received 70 emails in 3 months telling me I needed to buy a stab vest and watch out. The person was let off with just a caution. Somebody chased my activist with a sledgehammer, which we had it on video, and he was let off. A man was looking for me in the town I represented, saying he wanted to kill me, let off. Tearing my gates down at my home, never found. Someone publishing my address online recently where I live alone as a single parent with my child and the police wouldn't even investigate. Campaigning on the doorstep last year, a man pulled his pants down in front of my young son and I and nothing happened to that man. This is just the experience, everybody, of one person, myself. I couldn't get justice, but imagine every village, every town, every inch of our country, these daily occurrences that we are all witnessing, that proves we are soft-touch Britain. When are they going to get justice? I don't feel safe. And as a mother, I no longer feel that our children live in a safe, beautiful haven of Britain that I grew up in. We live in a country where it's frowned upon to speak one's mind, where we are cancelled and women are cancelled. We have seen the left-wing indoctrination of our infant school-aged children all under a Conservative government. I spoke out about this. Whilst an MP, I spoke up that our children should not be taught that there are more than two sexes and to be not taught about sex in primary schools. And I call for parents to have the right to see materials of what their children are taught. Now, during the PSHE, so that's the Relationship Sex Education Bill, it was rushed through Parliament during COVID, so there was no scrutiny. And it was championed and pushed by a Conservative Schools Minister who actively championed Stonewall's involvement in schools and in government. Now, under the Conservatives, we lived under an NHS that allowed children to be on puberty blockers and allowed them to change genders. And an NHS what erased the word mother and replaced it with birthing parent and replaced breastfeeding with chest feeding. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be a mother and I'm proud to have breasts. Now, we've lived through decades when institutions, police and some politicians have turned a blind eye to the grooming of our children, and we've seen a rise in domestic abuse. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no wonder that both men and women are turning to reform. They need hope that this 1984 Orwellian nightmare where the thought police are monitoring our every social media post, yet letting off paedophiles, they want this to end. I stand before you today, not as a politician, but as a mother of a wonderful 8-year-old boy, and to tell you I'm fighting for his future. Nigel and Reform, all our politicians, the ladies on the panel, the volunteers, those at Reform HQ, are here to tell you all, we hear you, we will protect you, and we will fight for your children. And as all at Reform know, there are just two sexes. Now, I'm pleased to stand here before you and introduce some of the many women who represent Reform. I've got one in the audience here. Ingrid is my Deputy Mayor of Lincolnshire. She's here at the front. Now, first up is Linden Kemkaran, the Reform leader of Kent County Council. Now, Reform won 57 of 81 council seats in Kent. She's straight-talking, wonderful lady, and she's going to talk to you about what she's doing to stand up for women and for common sense. Cameron, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I want to start by sharing with you a story of what happened at my last full council meeting on the 10th of July. The opposition put forward a motion to prevent violence against women and girls in Kent. What could possibly be wrong with that, I hear you ask? The motion, no doubt, came from a good place, but I was very concerned that it was ignoring some rather large elephants in the room. There are two recent phenomena that have, without a doubt, caused women and girls to be less safe, not just in Kent, but in the UK as a whole. Let me explain. The first, as Andrea just referenced, is the belief that's been actively and at times aggressively pushed on us by politicians, the media, and our state institutions, that biological men pretending to be women should be allowed into female-only single-sex spaces. It is a fact that allowing biological men into women's spaces has made women and girls in the UK less safe. The opposition motion didn't mention that at all. The second thing that's made women and girls less safe, but which was also missing from the opposition motion, is of course illegal migration. The invasion, and I use the word invasion because that is exactly what it is, of hundreds and thousands of undocumented men who've come from countries where violence is the norm and women are not even second-class citizens, is placing women and girls in grave danger. When I debated the motion in the council chamber and quoted facts and figures to demonstrate the shocking number of foreign-born men charged with sexual offences against women, the opposition called me racist, xenophobic and bigoted. Two of them actually left. They stormed out and they yelled a swear word over their shoulder at me as they left the chamber. Now, that's not just utterly disgraceful behaviour from elected officials, but a total pig-headed refusal to acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. I wondered if their anger stemmed from all these pesky women complaining about being raped and sexually assaulted. I mean, for goodness sake, why can't they just shut their mouths for the sake of diversity? And for the record, that's a sentiment that's actually been publicly supported by a sitting Labour MP. It's the same mindset that saw the industrial scale cover-up of the rape gangs. And if that's not ringing alarm bells for you, then it should. Anyway, the facts and figures have been very slow to emerge, but now they're becoming freely available. There's just no escaping the evidence. Illegal migration is harming women and girls. The number of foreign national sex offenders in prison has gone up by almost 10% just in the last 12 months. The recent report by Dame Louise Casey pointed out that Afghan men commit up to 20 times more sex offences than average. And thanks to our hapless politicians, we now have tens of thousands of Afghan men who may or may not be Taliban, secretly brought to the UK, now living alongside our service families in military accommodation. You really could not make this up. And as for the small boat invaders, well, the government is now closing the migrant hotels and placing groups of these men who, don't forget, we have no idea who they are or where they really come from, into the very hearts of our towns and villages, requisitioning guest houses, blocks of flats, small hotels and HMOs. It is happening by stealth in Kent and all over the country. And still, day by day, the boats keep coming. Once ensconced, these men are free to come and go as they please, and we know that some are working illegally for food delivery companies. How one organises insurance, background checks or a payslip for someone with no ID is beyond me. Another thing we now know is that over 200 of these men living at our expense in our communities have been charged with over 400 offences, 44 of which were sexual offences. And these are just the ones we know about at this moment in time. My residents in Kent are beyond furious. Kent is a proud and ancient county, and our motto is Invicta, which means unconquered, undefeated or invincible. The irony of our shores being invaded day after day by men who have fled the safe country of France to come to the UK by choice is not lost on my residents. So I'm going to leave you with some unanswered questions. How many rapes is too many? How many sexual assaults is too many? When is this government going to wake up to the reality of what so many women and girls are experiencing? I believe this is now a national emergency and should be treated as such. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very passionate. Next is Laila, who's our Westminster City Councillor. She's been a councillor for 3 years. She's also a criminal lawyer, and I'm sure recently you've heard her passionately standing up for safety values and protecting our communities. All yours, Laila. Thank you.
Safety is the first duty of any government. If you cannot protect Britain, you have no right to govern it. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks to Labour and Conservatives, Britain is now lawless. My name is Laila Cunningham. I'm a Westminster City Councillor, a former senior Crown Prosecutor and a mum of 7. Our country's changed. I remember a time when calling the police meant they would actually come. Now, when my kids were robbed, police told me there weren't enough resources to send someone. I had to do the dangerous legwork myself over many weeks to catch the criminals. I risked my life and the press called me vigilante mum. Well, this campaign and reform is for every vigilante mum out there, for every parent who feels sick with worry when their kids leave the house, for every parent who's been looked down on, ignored and insulted, or worse, silenced. For everyone fighting to protect their family only to be told to calm down and shut up while the government places foreign rapists on their doorsteps. You are not alone. We see you, we hear you, and reform is coming to fight for you. From the start of this campaign, the press accused me of lying, of stirring up fear. I've prosecuted violent criminals. I've comforted victims. I've hugged my own children after they were robbed at knife point. This campaign is not spin for me. It's a reality. I've seen danger up close, and I can tell you the fear is not paranoia. It's the truth. When you cut visible policing, half stop and search, empty the prisons, and only charge 6% of reported crimes, you hand control of our streets to the criminals. This isn't just failure. It's a dereliction of duty. And I'm angry, because the very people who won our votes with promises of safety have done the exact opposite. Why are there no more police on our streets? Why isn't there a laser focus on knife crime? Why aren't people in balaclavas searched? Why are foreign rapists not deported? While these questions and many more still go unanswered, they have the audacity to force through the online safety bill, using child safety as a cover to gag dissent. And when we call it what it really is, censorship, they accuse us of being dangerous and siding with predators. A masterclass in double standards. A level of hypocrisy only matched by their deceit. These are the same people that refuse a national inquiry into the Pakistani rape gangs they protected for years. The same people that still house foreign rapists in hotels by schools and homes, and then act shocked when mothers protest. What do they expect? And if you need more proof that both parties have actively deprioritized our safety, ask yourself this. How can they find billions for foreign aid, 7 billion for Afghan refugees, some unvetted and dangerous, but not for more police, not for victims, and not for our children? And where are they when a boy is stabbed? Silent. Where are they when girls are groomed and raped? Silent. No policy announcements, no Cobra meetings, no billions, no elite squads. Those are reserved for censoring us. And then they take the knee. They bow the knee to ideology. Like the Crown Prosecution Service so-called policy on violence against women and girls. It states that it's actually gender neutral and inclusive of men who identify as women. That's not inclusion. That's deleting us from our own safety laws. The Tories took a policy meant to protect women and gutted it. What should have been a shield for us became a smokescreen for politicians. Because rape and sexual assault against women is an epidemic. Women are targeted because we are women. We face threats men will never face. And we want a government that recognises this, not an ideology that erases it. And that starts with a fearless leader who puts truth and safety first. Now imagine a government led by Nigel that treats safety of its people as sacred. One that stands between you and danger every hour, every day, and never flinches. Where the police are on your streets. Where every predator, gang member and violent offender knows there is nowhere to hide. Where your borders are secure, your streets are safe, and your children, our children, can grow up free from fear. That is the Britain we deserve, and that is the Britain we shall have under reform. Because this country doesn't belong to the gangs, the predators, or the politicians that protect them. It belongs to us. The people who work hard, raise our families, play by the rules, and we deserve to live without fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Laila. I love the vigilante mums. We need to get that trending. And finally, our newbie MP, Sarah. Now, she's only been an MP for 12 weeks, but already she's causing a stir. Sarah.
Well, I hope that's in a good way. And it wasn't so long ago that we started our summer crime campaign. And I think the first thing I said to you all was how lovely it was that I was alongside Laila and Nigel that day, and that you were looking at 2 formidable women now. And today, here you are looking at 4 formidable women, all speaking from the same hymn sheet about this very important issue. So first of all, I should say thank you all for coming. And what we're talking about today is a matter of national security. And that is the heightened and increasing threat to the safety and security of women and girls across this country. A threat that our own government is enabling. And as you've heard, we're talking about the daily influx of people who do not share our values, who do not share our culture, but who are being welcomed into this country, all at vast expense to us, the taxpayer. We know that on average 800 to 1,000 migrants are arriving illegally in Britain each week, 26,000 so far alone on what I hope people will stop calling small boats, because they're clearly not small boats, they're very large boats. And even on Saturday, I think there were, I read in the paper, 435 at Dover, arrived at Dover on Saturday. And all of these people are either checked into hotels or dispersed into houses of multiple occupancy, better known as HMOs, around the country. And there's disturbing news today in the press about how the Home Office are liaising with private contractors to sweep up whole streets of houses, to take over blocks of houses. We know that officially there are 210 registered asylum hotels currently housing migrants in the UK. That's the figure as of July this year. Yet despite the government promising to close all of these hotels by 2029, we see the exact opposite happening, don't we? Even more being opened every day. From Cheshire to Norfolk, from Epping to Ashfield, few areas of the UK have remained untouched by this wave of state-supported illegal migration. The vast majority of these migrants are young, military-aged males. We can see it with our own eyes. We can see it from the media coverage. We hear reports of their documents, their identity documents being thrown into the Channel just as they approach Dover. They're not throwing away their smartphones, are they? But they throw away their documents just so they cannot be identified. And this helps them game our archaically generous and trusting immigration system until they're simply approved by attrition by the Home Office. And again today, there's headlines of 150,000 migrants that have just been lost in the system by the Home Office. We know that many claim to be children on these boats, despite being visibly over 18. How stupid do they think the British public is? And of course, they're all coming from France, which I think's been mentioned, which, to the best of all of our knowledge, is still listed as a safe place to visit by our Foreign Office. So despite arriving here illegally, despite fleeing a perfectly safe European country, despite lying about their age, they are all housed, clothed, fed, all at the expense of us. Eventually, they will find themselves moved from a 3- or 4-star hotel and dispersed into local housing, ahead of our local British citizens on housing lists. I hear these stories all the time in my constituency. Once in an HMO, we know, don't we, that they often disappear off the Home Office radar into the black economy and often into a world of crime. The police have no knowledge of who these individuals are because basic information is not collected when these people arrive in the country. Is any facial recognition done? No. Are DNA swabs taken? No. Anything to help our police and security services investigate and detect crime? Of course not. Why not? Because the left-wing lawyers will cry human rights. Well, I don't know if any of you have been to the States recently. My fingerprints were taken, my facial biometrics were taken. And if you've read recently in the press, Europe is about to do the same to us. So what is the problem? The truth is, we have no idea who we're letting in. No idea how many of them have criminal records or who might be a red flag to our security services. How many are drug dealers, murderers, rapists, spies for hostile regimes, terrorists? What we do know is that this government is being forced, kicking and screaming, to accept that foreign nationals are 4 times more likely to commit rape or sexual assault than British men. The inconvenient truth for the left is that the culture of men from predominantly Muslim countries, like Afghanistan, is one that holds a medieval view of women's rights. It is fundamentally alien to the centuries of progress made by our own Western culture and attitudes. Women are at risk of sexual assault and rape from these men. Hundreds of young men who arrive in this country, housed in our communities, who undoubtedly become sexually frustrated, have a warped view of their right to sexually assault women. Of the 1,453 sexual assault convictions in 2024, 25% were committed by foreign nationals. Afghan men are 3 times more likely to be convicted of a sexual offence than someone born in the United Kingdom, and represent the largest group of migrants who commit sexual violence against women. And yet we know that 18,000 at least were covertly let into this country by the last government with no security vetting. We hear shocking and disturbing stories of young girls, very young girls, who have been raped by these men. A 12-year-old in Nuneaton, an 8-year-old in Lambeth, raped. And what is this government doing to stop this? Pretending it isn't happening and persecuting those who stand up to protest. The first priority of any government is to protect its citizens. And yet this government is in denial that this is even happening. It's overseeing an establishment that is gaslighting us by hiding the facts. The data has been covered up for too long. This denial is nothing short of betrayal of our women and girls. And it's no wonder that we're now hearing about groups of concerned British men mobilising themselves into guardian angel-style street patrols, like the one funded by the philanthropist in Bedford. Street patrols out there to protect their daughters, their girlfriends, their wives, even their mothers. It's no wonder that we're seeing mass protests by concerned mothers outside these migrant hotels. Mothers who are afraid for the safety of their daughters. And why wouldn't they be when we hear that these illegal migrants are loitering around schools, around parks, men with deplorable attitudes towards women. I have stories from my own constituency of exactly this happening, of indecent exposure to young girls happening. Mothers will not let their children play out on the streets. A reform government will stop this betrayal of our women and girls. We will deport every illegal immigrant that sets foot on our shores. We will deport all illegal immigrants housed in hotels up and down this country. We will do everything we can to ensure that those dispersed in the HMOs are found and deported. We will deport all foreign national offenders in our prisons, ensuring that when they do get out, they are not free to walk on our streets. We will instruct our police to respond to every inappropriate sexual behaviour call by migrants against our women and girls. We will empower our Immigration Enforcement Division to detain them, to deport them, to raid town centre businesses along the way. And of course, we have to, and reform will, leave the ECHR and put an end to the lucrative merry-go-round of human rights-based appeals. We will stop this madness. It is a matter of national security, and only a reform government will protect women. Thank you.
As you've heard today, safety and security of the British people is a top priority for all at Reform at every level. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the next 4 years, we have this opportunity to demonstrate that Reform is ready to take power in 2029. We've got great people like our council leader who's got power, and she's challenging the Uni-Party consensus. She's saving taxpayers' money. And I don't know if you heard yesterday from Reform HQ, already they've found £100 million in savings across councils in England so far, and they've yet more to find. We control councils' two mayoralities. Our Mayor Luke, who is across in Hull, is on a sacking spree and is determined to root out the blob who will undermine his democratic mandate and deliver, as am I. My Deputy Mayor Ingrid and I, we are determined to deliver for the 1.1 million people of Lincolnshire. And what we've got planned for our county will be a microcosm of what Reform can deliver in 2029. Now, you've heard from some of the many strong women from Reform, heartfelt stories. I mean, it's very sad, isn't it, to hear that Laila's children have been mugged. This is Sadiq Khan's London for you. But these are just a snapshot. Every Reform activist that I come across, every elected politician, they are all the same view. We're here to change Britain to as it used to be. Now, we're standing up for both women and men. Now, we've seen the Blair's babes, for those of you who are old enough to remember them, the Cameron's cuties, to which I was one. Getting a bit older now, though. But I'm proud to be one of Farage's fillies. And as we are a new breed of politician, as the Reform men are, we're a different breed. Welcome back to the era of conviction politicians and vigilante mums. Welcome to the era of politicians who are fighting for you, for our children, and fighting for Britain. We will protect you from the undocumented males who are arriving in Britain. We will protect you from the blob that try to indoctrinate your children with a ridiculous left-wing ideology. We will sort out the courts and the processes and protect women and children from domestic abuse. Look, I've been there We need to change that system. We need the system to also recognise the personality disorders out there, although we'd probably get rid of half the Commons if we did that. Now, we will stand up for mothers, for fathers, for children and Joe Blogs in the street. We will fight for your future so you all feel safe and you all prosper. We will fight for you, for the British people, the doers, the strivers, the builders who are the heartbeat of our country. When I joined Reform last year, I said I was joining the party of the brave. I hope today you can see we are the party of the brave. Ladies and gentlemen, our fabulous Nigel and all at Reform are listening. We are acting. We will get Britain back to being a country that we are all proud of. Now, this is the end of the press conference. There'll be some tables in there where we'll be doing one-to-ones, press interviews. But thank you. I hope you all realise we will get the country back on its feet. We will make you safe. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Andrea. A really powerful press conference indeed from Reform HQ. Well, a very good morning to you all and welcome to Reform TV. I'm Dr. David Bull. I'm chairman of Reform UK. And as you saw, today's show and the press conference today is strictly about women's voices, women's safety and the realities for women living in modern day Britain, which politicians, quite frankly, would rather ignore. Now, this morning we heard some very powerful, some very poignant speeches which reveal many of the hard truths surrounding women's safety across modern-day Britain up and down the country. From the rise in migrant crime, as highlighted by Sarah Pochin MP, to the failure to keep communities safe, and why so many women are now joining Reform UK and voting for us for the very first time. There is no doubt they are fully behind our Britain is Lawless campaign. It's time we took these issues seriously and ensured that there is a radical overhaul in the way we deal with crime to ensure women and girls are safe on Britain's street. This is Reform TV Live. Britain is lawless. Well, a very good morning to you. There is no doubt, as I keep reiterating, that Britain is lawless and women and girls are increasingly frightened to venture onto Britain's streets. Now, in this show, I'll be speaking to Sarah Pochin. She is the Member of Parliament for Runcorn and Helsby, who has been speaking out on migrant crime and community safety concerns in today's press conference. She will then be followed by Linden Kemkaran. As we heard, she is leader of Kent County Council. She represents the Maidstone South East Division and sits on the Council's cabinet and key committees. After I've spoken to Linden, I'll then be speaking to Dame Andrea Jenkyns, today's conference chair and Reform UK's first ever female mayor. And of course, she is mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. And last, but by no means least, of course, I will be talking to Westminster City Councillor Laila Cunningham, who has been speaking out about the fears that many parents have for their children's safety. Now, we keep talking about Britain being lawless. It's been the recurring theme over our press conferences over the last few weeks. But let me just stop here for the moment and give you some facts, because this really drives home the point that we are trying to make. 66% of women sometimes feel unsafe walking home, with 26% always feeling unsafe. And here is a really shocking statistic, actually. 20% of women will never walk home at night as a result. This is in modern day Britain. Now, more than half of all women regularly avoid being out at certain times in order to reduce the risk of encountering harassment or sexual assault. And finally, 45% of women feel unsafe on public transport, and 38% of women feel unsafe when travelling alone in a taxi or in a rideshare. I don't know about you sitting at home watching this press conference and indeed this programme, but for me these are really shocking statistics. So I have a family where I have 3 nieces who are growing up in modern day Britain. I'm extremely concerned for their safety on Britain's streets, and quite frankly this is something we should not be allowed to encounter in this great country of ours. And as the 4 formidable women, as they called themselves earlier on this morning, say, that actually we, Reform UK, is the only party that will actually do something about this and change the future of Britain for good. Well, my first guest, I'm delighted to say, who is joining me just now, my first guest is the Member of Parliament for Runcorn and Helsby, of course. She was elected on the 1st of May this year, becoming the first female Reform UK MP. And prior to assuming the office, she has been a councillor. She's also been a magistrate for 2 decades. And I'm delighted to say that Sarah Pochin MP joins me now. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, David.
Such a powerful press conference, actually. And for me, it's kind of epitomised by saying women for reform, 4 formidable women in British politics. That is quite a statement.
It is a statement. I think it's a very, very powerful message. I know I've been asked so many times since I became the Member of Parliament for Runcorn and Helsby, is it a boys' club? You know, what's it like with all these men? Well, look, that's nonsense. We've made huge progress now attracting women into the party. And as you see, we've got some formidable women, senior women at the top of the party now that are really speaking out for the safety of women and girls.
I think you've done an amazing job as a Member of Parliament, and I've said this repeatedly, which is you're not afraid to tackle some of these issues head on. You spoke then very eloquently in that press conference about migration. This is the thing that people are talking about on the street. When we go out campaigning all the time, people are saying we are being invaded. This is an illegal invasion. It is migration which is totally out of control. When did you realise, first of all, that the migration, the immigration, these small boats, which are not small boats, as came across in that press conference, when did you realise that actually this was a major problem for girls and for women in Britain?
Well, if I'm truly honest, it started in the by-election campaign where I live. You know, I haven't seen so much of it at that point myself, but I have to say it's starting to creep into every part of our towns and cities. But during the by-election, so many people came over the doorstep in the campaign office in Runcorn telling me about their experiences, telling me about what it was like to live next door to a house of multiple occupation. And all the things that I talk about, the antisocial behaviour, the drug dealing, the knife crime, the noise and the sexual assault and threat to women and girls on the streets is happening.
Do you get the sense that there is a desperate void of information coming from mainstream media? Because it seems to me that when we are out and about campaigning and hearing all of those stories, and we've heard them from residents in your constituency across the United Kingdom, and yet the media seems incredibly silent.
It is silent. When do you ever see any of this reporting on the BBC or even some of the, you know, mainstream newspapers? It seems to take an awful lot now for this message to get through. And you're right, it's people like myself constantly speaking out on these issues. Some of the smaller news channels do an amazing job, thank goodness, on raising these issues, because the establishment and the government is absolutely in denial. It does gaslight the British population by denying us and not telling us who are committing these crimes.
So when you talk to women in your constituency, when you knock on doors and you go round campaigning and canvassing, where does crime, violence, safety of women rank in terms of the issues that your constituents are worrying about? Well,
look, I tell you, this is a really interesting fact. I had a recent meeting with the Chief Constable of Cheshire, and Cheshire in 2024 set up their very own Foreign National Offenders Unit. And I was quite surprised myself. People imagine Cheshire to be leafy and lovely, and of course it is in places. But I said to the Chief Constable, well, you know, where did that come from? And of course he had to admit to me, and freely did admit, it came because of demand, because of the amount of cases now that are being reported to the Cheshire Police of offences committed by foreign national offenders.
I mean, that's absolutely extraordinary, and it's unacceptable, actually.
Totally unacceptable. And we also know, and the British people know, about the two-tier justice that happens with those offenders. So if they are caught, and that's often not the case because we have no idea who they are and how to identify them. But if they are caught, we know they're dealt with quite differently to some of the protesters or people trying to stand up against these crimes.
I mean, you talked in that press conference, you said this is a matter of national security. Do you believe that to be true?
I absolutely believe it to be true. The security of our women and girls, but the security also in terms of potential terrorism. We have no idea who's landing on our shores because do not have access to their criminal records. We don't know, as I said in the press conference, whether they're murderers, rapists, spies for hostile regimes or terrorists. But what we do know is that we're losing them, we're losing track of them in our communities. How do the security services keep a track of them if there's no facial recognition done, no DNA done?
And the government's response to this is, oh, OK, we're going to close all the hotels, but we're going to put them in HMOs, the houses of multiple occupation, in your street.
Absolutely. And even more frightening now today in the papers, there's articles now saying that the government, the Home Office, is facilitating the providers, the likes of Serco, to buy up whole blocks of flats, whole streets of houses, always in towns which are deprived, which don't have a strong voice to speak up against it. OK,
so if you could make one change, and you talked about leaving the ECHR, I heard you say that in that press conference. If you could make one change that would make a really tangible difference, what would it be?
Well, we do have to leave the ECHR because we need to put a stop to this endless round of appeals, because at the moment they can appeal forever and effectively stay in this country forever. Now, no other government, the Tories didn't do it, and this Labour government will never do that. But the fact is, without that, all of their promises about deporting criminals and deporting the prisoners and all that, it's nonsense. It will not happen whilst there's an appeal process available.
It seems to me that the country is waking up. The country at large, I live in the countryside, this is what people are talking about the whole time. The fact is, they talk about being invaded, the country is unrecognisable. I was out campaigning with Richard Tice, and we saw large numbers of men who do not speak English as a primary language congregating in the centre of these towns and cities across the United Kingdom. And people, indigenous people, are saying, hang on a minute, this is enough of this.
Our culture is being slowly erased. I was on the weekend in Anglesey, of all places, and there are, huge amounts of people now not speaking any English, and you do start to think, oh my goodness, it's everywhere. And the fact is if they were prepared to integrate, if they were prepared to speak English, then then legal migration is one thing, but we are facing an invasion of illegal immigrants that we cannot control. We don't know where they are, and they have no interest in integrating into our culture and our society.
Now, you know this, but I have 3 nieces of differing ages. As they grow up and develop, I'm very scared for their future in this country. What's it like to be a woman in Britain?
Well, even I'm very outspoken, as you know. There's probably a target on my back, but we have to be brave. I have 2 sons. I haven't got a daughter, but nevertheless, you've got nieces, etc. It doesn't matter whether it's your nieces or whether it's someone you don't know. The point is we have to protect all our children. And when people come into my office in Runcorn and tell me that their young daughters have been flashed at by clearly what is an illegal immigrant, just hanging around parks, hanging around schools. They are so scared, and only reform are going to put a stop to this, because only reform will truly deport these people, will truly leave the ECHR, and therefore make this happen.
And is that what gives you hope?
I am the hope for the British people. Nigel is the hope for the British people. And that's why we have such a huge swell of support from women, from mothers, but from everybody. The whole population need reform to get in next time, and we will.
Sarah, such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, David.
That is, of course, Sarah Pochin, MP. Now, as you heard from Sarah there, people in this country are crying out for help and crying out for change. Put simply, they believe that Britain is lawless, and it is clear for all to see that successive governments haven't just turned a blind eye, they have been an intrinsic part of the problem. And the public are not alone in feeling that sentiment. Meet Russ. He is a former detective who has served over 30 years in the force. He also believes unequivocally that Britain is lawless.
I believe that Britain is lawless. My name's Russ, and I was a police officer for 31 years between 1965 and 1996. I was a police constable in uniform for 2 years, and then I applied to join the CID, and I served in the CID for the next 28 and a half years. Crime's changed in a huge way. When I was in the force, crimes were investigated, all crimes were investigated, but that wouldn't be the case now. There are some crimes that are ignored or put on the back burner. Burglaries certainly are not investigated, and shoplifting, obviously. The message that is sent to our children and the youngsters in this country is, police don't care about the crime that's being committed and that you can just help yourselves. When I was a young trainee detective, we kept a weekly diary which was submitted to our DI every Wednesday. And in the back of that diary you kept a record of all your arrests, and they were called red inkers. And we were encouraged to go out and get red inkers. In this day and age, I could have filled up the back of my diary 3 times over by just standing outside a supermarket and lifting anybody who came out unauthorised, who hadn't paid for their shopping. And with the influx of all sorts of people into this country, it can only get worse, because they don't recognise the laws as we know them and how we were brought up to obey them. I was absolutely proud of my police service, still am. I don't think the police are respected as they once were. No backing, they can't do the job effectively, they're not allowed to do the job effectively because of lack of resources. I'm a convert to reform. I like Nigel's ideas. I've been to a reform rally in Birmingham, which I enjoyed immensely, the big one in Birmingham. I'm very hopeful that he gets in at the earliest opportunity to try and break up the uniparty system, which isn't doing anything for certainly the policing of this country and the people in general. Britain is lawless and Britain needs reform.
Well, very strong and very powerful words. Well, my next guest is Linden Kemkaran. She is a Kent County councillor. She's also leader of Kent County Council. She's a former BBC journalist turned media trainer and entrepreneur. Now, she represents the Maidstone South East Division and sits on the council's cabinet and key committees. Really good to see you this morning. And can I just start by saying what a powerful speech you gave?
Thank you. I enjoyed making it.
I've heard you're a very formidable leader of the council. That is what they are saying to me. Just tell me what is going on in Kent in terms of safety, crime, women, girls on the streets of Kent. You really are on the front line, aren't you, with the small boats, not so small boats?
We're on the front line in Kent, and we have been since this started. What was it, 2018? The boats started coming. My residents are beyond furious.
I'm sure.
They really are. This came up again and again on the doorstep when we were out campaigning for the county elections. Now, people aren't daft. They know that a county councillor has no sway when it comes to national policy. You know, we can't physically stop the boats, but it didn't stop people talking again and again and again how angry they are, how frustrated they are. They just don't understand why this country cannot protect its own borders.
No, and so what do you try and explain to them as a response? Because they are saying, if Reform UK says this, we can leave the ECHR, we declare a national emergency under the 1951 Convention on the Seas, and we actually send people back out of this country who have no right to be in this country. And how do you kind of respond to people when you are facing a government that is a Labour government that clearly doesn't seem to want to do anything about the problem?
Do you know, we are people's last hope. They say that to us.
Do they?
They actually say, if you don't get into government at the next general election, this country is finished. People are literally thinking about where they can go to raise their children, to raise their grandchildren, because they no longer feel safe in this country. It is terrible.
So let's talk about your speech, because you mentioned something very important here, which is the risk posed by biological men being allowed to use biological women's changing spaces. Now, I thought it was extremely clear from the Cass report that she made it, and it's a very good report indeed, saying that there are two sexes, biological men and biological females.
But what the trouble is, it is very clear. And of course, any 5-year-old will tell you about biology. You are born male or female. You will die male or female. Whatever you do in the intervening years does not change that fact. The trouble is we have a whole load of politicians who have been completely, I don't know, deluded by this sort of Stonewall initiative to try and push the trans agenda so strongly in our schools, in our universities. It has infiltrated every single part of life. So trying to row back on that is actually a massive task. It shouldn't be, but it is.
So in terms of the leadership that you're giving in doing as the council in Kent? What are you saying to the population in Kent?
Well, the first thing we did, we didn't fly the pride flag from the top of Kent County Council's buildings.
Which is reform policy.
It is reform policy, but there was an uproar in the council chamber when I said we will not be flying the pride flag. You know, the opposition came in with their rainbow socks and their rainbow lanyards. I mean, bless them, they look lovely. And that is absolutely their right to wear what they want to wear.
Yes.
But when I said we're not going to have that flag on top of the building, because I think it represents a very dodgy political ideology, there was uproar.
And just in terms of that, why should a council, which is there to service every single constituent, why should it take on political causes?
Well, the thing is, and the flag's a really good example of this, we are there to serve every single resident in Kent, whether they voted for us or not. That's immaterial. The flags we're now flying are completely representative of that. We've got the flag of Kent, represents everybody in Kent. We've got the flag of St George, represents everybody in England, and we've got the Union flag, represents everybody in the United Kingdom. It doesn't get more inclusive than that, does it?
And a very fine county it is as well. As I told you earlier, I was born in Kent, as was Nigel Farage,
yes.
In the same hospital.
All the best people are.
Well, absolutely right. Now, let's just go back to this illegal immigration, because some of these facts that you gave this morning are absolutely extraordinary. 1,453 sexual assault convictions in 2024, 25% of those, by the way, by foreign nationals. Afghan men, you said, are 20 times more likely to commit offences. I also know that they're 3 times more likely to be convicted of a sexual offence. What are we doing?
What are we doing? We've let these people into our country. They're still coming. While I've been speaking to you on air, what's the betting? Another boat has arrived on the shores of Dover with X many hundred men on board, because they are 90% men, despite what Labour will try and tell us, they are all men. Where have they come from? Who are they? What are their intentions? It is utterly, utterly bonkers.
And of course, France is not exactly a dangerous country, is it?
The last time I went to France, which was probably 2 years ago, it was lovely. Full of French people, but it was lovely. You can't have everything.
No, you can't. So Sarah and I also talked about these HMOs, the houses of multiple occupation. So the government says, oh, right, we're closing all these hotels down because we know it's costing a lot of money. What is it, £7 million a day or thereabouts? We're closing those, but we're going to build HMOs in the middle of your street in Kent. That is an appalling decision, A, and B, completely counter to what your residents want.
It is all of those things and more. They're doing it by stealth. I've written to the Home Secretary last week, end of last week, to say to her, you must be more transparent. My residents are finding out that these guest houses, small hotels, HMOs are being requisitioned by the Home Office via social media. It is not good enough. They need to be more transparent. We don't want these people in our communities, full stop. But until the government grows a backbone and finds a way to stop those boats, we're stuck with them. But what I would like is for our residents to actually know what's happening in their town or village. It's the least that the Home Office can do, really.
So can I just ask you on a very personal note, why are you a representative of Reform UK? And what was it about the party that attracted you? What are the missions, visions and principles by which you feel most closely aligned to Reform? Well,
it's a party of common sense. I mean, I was a Conservative for a few years, and I realised quite early on they'd lost whatever common sense they'd had. They'd forgotten what it actually meant to be Conservative, to be right of centre, to have those views about conserving traditions, about wanting the good bits about this country to be preserved and conserved. And that is what Nigel Farage and Reform represent. It's like a breath of fresh air being part of Reform. I speak my mind now, being part of Reform.
I noticed.
And it is welcomed. It is welcomed.
No, it's extremely welcome. Thank you so much for doing such a brilliant job in Kent, actually, and thank you so much for this morning and appearing here on Reform TV as well. Thank you very much indeed. Well, my next guest is the Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, having been elected in May of this year. She's one of our 2 Reform UK mayors. She also holds the accolade of being the first female Reform UK mayor. Now, previously, she was the Member of Parliament for Morley and Outward in West Yorkshire. Before we meet her, let's find out more about how she saw the light and came to Reform UK.
It is a big night for Reform across the country, big night for Lincolnshire. Fingers crossed. It's going to be a long night. Fingers crossed, it'll be a good one. Well, I've got a decent smile on my face. Just coming out of the count in Boston, it's looking very good for Andrea Jenkyns, our mayoral candidate, and fingers crossed for the county council candidates as well. And we've just had some awesome, amazing news. Hartlepool, we've won a by-election up there with a massive, massive swing. Thrilled for Amanda Napper, and that of course was my old stomping ground. So the night has started well. Onwards. It's looking good so far. We're winning all over the country. Are we going to win here?
Oh, yes!
It's looking good in there.
Just had a very strong Woodall. Very strong Woodall spot.
But that's like the epicentre of Tories.
Yeah. We are the underdogs, but we're going for it.
We've just come out of the counting centre here in Louth, and the news is continuing to be good for reform. So it's pretty extraordinary. We've been to 2 counts, heading into Grimsby Town Hall, where the results will be accumulated for the mayoral election, declaration, and then announced. And I know it's not going to be easy. There's going to be no guarantees. We're going to make some mistakes. But I think what people hope is that we'll just give it a proper go, not mess around, and stop wasting money. It gets a whole load more grown up from here.
We're just outside the count. We're hearing good things. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
I may become the mayor of Lincolnshire within the next hour.
Well, it's Friday morning and the results have been outstanding. Andrea Jenkyns has been confirmed and declared as the new mayoral candidate for Greater Lincolnshire.
What a result for reform. I'm also proud of the by-election result as well. We're going to restore the trust in the British people, and I'm going to fight for the people of Lincolnshire and ensure that you are at the heart of everything that we do.
We've won the by-election. Sarah Pochin, incredible, by just 6 votes in Runcorn and Helsby. An amazing night.
I hope you come up to Lincolnshire as well.
Well, there's the great Richard Tyson, of course, Andrea Jenkyns, and the lady herself joins me now. A very good morning to you.
Good to see you, David.
Really good to see you as well. Now, in that press conference, you spoke there about what you're seeing on the street. The fact is this campaign, particularly this campaign, is actually attracting women who may have been undecided in the first place or maybe voted tribally for other parties, but coming over to Reform UK.
I mean, I got it during the election. You know, it's a big area, Lincolnshire, isn't it? 1.1 million people. And what I was getting on the doorstep, David, is that people feel that they're finally being listened to, male and female, actually. And it's, people are not voting tribally, or is a small percentage now. They just want someone to get the job done, and clearly it's Reform who can do that.
And Linden talked about we're the party of common sense. What is it about Reform UK that you think is attracting people?
Yeah. I think it's the bravery, actually. I mentioned that in my speech, because as we've seen with Nigel and all the Reform politicians, and even with yourself, David, that people are not afraid to say as it is and what the general public are thinking. You know, we are saying what is in their thought process, and we are standing up for them.
Yeah. Now, you started your speech with quite jaw-dropping statements, and actually my mouth dropped open.
I had to keep the swear words out, of course.
Well, of course. I mean, for 11 o'clock, that was pretty punchy, but they are real insults that have been hurled at you.
Yes.
I mean, that's a shocking state of affairs.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't add the one where I hope your female genitals are wrapped in barbed wire and you die. That was another one as well.
And is this to your face, or is this on social media?
This is emails,
Right.
Emails, and all those was emails,
And why do you think people feel that they are able to talk to an elected representative in that way? Would they actually dare to say that to your face?
Well, it's funny you should say that, actually, David, because I remember in the 2019 election, there was a guy who would always troll me, and it'd be horrible. And I recognised his name when we was campaigning, and I knocked on his door, and he was a coward face to face.
I bet he was.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't know what to say.
So what happened when you knocked on the door? Was he absolutely taken aback?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And I said, "Oh, you're the troller on social media, are you?" And he just, I don't want trouble. I said,
but you're causing me trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said, look, do you know, if you've got something to say, don't be a coward, say it to my face now. And he didn't.
Of course he didn't.
No, absolutely.
And this is what we find all the time, is that people seem to be very brave, don't they, on social media. They'll say things they would never say to you in public because actually, as you say, they're cowards.
Well, another example really was last year when I was campaigning. Clifford was on the doorstep with me. I'd always have a team with me, so, you know, we're safe. But this guy pulled his trousers down at the window, and I got one of my volunteers to take Clifford away, and I banged on that door. His wife came to the door and she apologised. He was shouting obscenities through the window. He wouldn't come and face me face to face at the door. And, yeah, people are cowards. That's what I think.
So you're doing a great job as the mayor. What are people saying to you, and particularly women and girls? We're talking about women in politics, women in Britain, and Britain being lawless. What are the key concerns when you talk to women on the doorstep about the safety fears for themselves, for their kids, for their girls, and for their families?
Look, I mean, first of all, I'm not a feminist, I'm a meritocrat. I wouldn't care if the whole cabinet was men. To me, it's about who's capable of doing the job. But women, look, I've seen the abuse I've had. And I do think we do tend to get more abuse as elected politicians. But no, on the doorstep, we've got, you know, the likes of the coastal areas of my area, people saying they don't feel safe going on the streets anymore. In my old town of Boston, which I used to represent as a councillor, I met an elderly couple who I represented 10 years ago. They used to love going in town on a weekend, and they don't feel safe anymore.
And what about illegal immigration? Because I said, actually, I was campaigning with Richard Tice in Boston, and I just was absolutely
Well, you can't hear an English voice, actually, and that's what this couple said to me.
But this was actually in the middle of the day. This was not in the evening.
I saw them in the middle of the day. Yeah, absolutely.
And so what's happened? What's going wrong?
It's undocumented people, and we've also haven't got the skills right, have we? I mean, do you know, as mayor, I'm responsible for the skills, to upskill the whole of Lincolnshire, and I'm very passionate about this, and also infrastructure, housing, and I've got to put Lincolnshire People First policy. But what we're finding with the skills, I mean, on a recent call with a minister, do you know that they're even giving visas out to welders? Now,
why?
Because we don't have enough welders.
Why don't we?
Exactly. And it's a very sad state of affairs that in Britain we don't have these basic important skills. How can we build? How can we build infrastructure projects, housing? So I'm going to set up a trades college and increase the trades provision so we can get building.
But this has been a very lazy policy, hasn't it, from successive governments, where they've actually been importing cheap labour instead of training our own. And when you look at the sheer numbers of young people not in education, employment or training.
And we need to get tougher with the benefits system. Those who don't want to work, get them out to work.
So what message would you give to women watching this today who have never voted for Reform UK before, maybe having seen the four, as you said, very powerful women there this morning?
And there's even more in the party there, isn't there?
There are, and actually...
You've seen some across the country,
it's so refreshing, actually, to see so many powerful women who are not afraid to speak their minds. And I think that does define us as a party, that we really are meritocratic.
It's about conviction as well, isn't it?
It is about conviction. What would you say to those people who are tempted to vote for Reform UK? What would you say to... I mean, I think most people can see the country is heading in the wrong direction.
Absolutely. Look, what I'd say is if you want a party with a leader who will defend you, who's brave, will say it as it is, and make things right, because we are fighters in reform. I mean, you've been in it far longer than me, David, haven't you? We are fighters. We fight for what we believe in. We're conviction politicians, and we will deliver for you. And like to the females out there, look, I've been in a previous relationship where there's domestic abuse. I've seen some horrific cases as an MP for 9 years. The casework that I had, even 2-year-olds being beaten up by their mothers. You know, one instance of this is too much. We've got to sort the court system out. We've got to sort out stronger policing, and also we've got to ensure that a zero tolerance approach, no crime is too small to go unpunished, and it'll be Reform who delivers that.
And do you believe that Reform UK is the only party, and Nigel made this very clear the other day, that we will not tolerate any crime? This is zero tolerance to all crime.
Completely. I mean, I've always been a fan of Rudy Giuliani when he was mayor of New York, the broken window theory, and that's what we will do with
And
Reform.
he was very successful in New York.
It was amazing. But I want to do a microcosm of that in my area.
Well, I wish you a very good deal of success doing that. Thank you so much for your time. Dame Andrea Jenkyns. Well, my next guest is a former CPS prosecutor and Westminster City Councillor for Reform UK, having defected also from the Conservatives. Now, she's publicly stated that she joined Reform UK because she could no longer defend the Conservatives' record, especially to residents on their doorsteps. Now, she is the mother, wait for this, of 7 and has seen the effects of crime in our capital firsthand. Before we meet her, let's find out more about her.
Crime is falling. You hear it every year. Crime is falling. So please don't worry your poor little heads.
We will never apologise for standing up for Britain and saying the truth. What are any of us supposed to do when those in charge do absolutely nothing? I've had enough of daily muggings, daily stuffings, seeing gangs roam my streets and balaclavas terrifying my children. We're tough on crime. No, they're not.
We need to restore law and order from the bottom up. People need to feel safe again. Britain needs reform.
We're actually facing, in many parts of our country, nothing short of societal collapse. And people are scared to go out of the shops, scared to let their kids out. Reform will be the toughest party on law and order and on crime that this country has ever seen. We will take back control of our streets, we will take back control of our courts, of our prisons. And if you're a criminal, I am putting you on notice today that from 2029, either you obey the law or you will face very serious justice. Zero tolerance policing. There is nothing left-wing or right-wing about desperately wanting for our society, for our streets, to be a hell of a lot safer than they are today. As with everything that we do, when we say it, we actually mean it. Thank you.
Well, I'm really pleased to say she joins me now. Very good to see you. What a great speech you gave this morning, such passion and conviction. And I could see you meant it. And actually, the fact is that having been a prosecutor as well, I could see it written all over your face, actually.
Oh, could you?
Yes, I really could.
Yeah, well, because I've seen it up close, right? And I've seen how broken the system is. And I've comforted victims who've been let down by the system. And a government that talks the talk but actually doesn't do anything to protect victims. There's so many things that need to be changed, and they're easy tweaks.
You have 7 children. I was quite staggered by that in itself. But just in terms of that, you have obviously got a very good handle on how parents think and the things that concern parents about their children. What do you believe concerns parents the most? And obviously we're talking about lawless Britain and particularly about women and girls in society. What are you hearing on when you talk to residents?
Yeah, I mean, residents, and when you have 7 kids, you have 7 school WhatsApp chats.
What joy.
Yeah, exactly. So I hear a lot, and what really concerns them about women and girls is women walking alone, their girls taking a taxi, or their girls taking a tube, and not having the confidence that they're going to be prosecuted. So if someone harasses them or touches them or does anything, that they're not going to be prosecuted. Also, even at school, you know, things are brushed aside. And it's the same with the boys. I'm always worried when my boys go out that they're going to get in a stupid fight and someone will put a knife and stab them.
And that's, I mentioned these statistics actually. If you can just pull your hair out of the way of your mic. Just one of the stats that I just found extraordinary is something like 250,000 kids carry knives in the mistaken belief it will actually protect them. But of course it does quite the opposite.
Well, when I was prosecuting, and they all carry knives, and the knives are so horrific when you see them. They're not knives that you'd use in a kitchen. They're serrated on both sides. They hide them in bushes, in playgrounds. And when they come to court, they say, I need it for protection, which also implies that they'll use it. And you only get mandatory sentencing when your second time of being caught with a knife. And that's up to 6 months.
So whose fault is this?
Oh, it's legislation. It's the government. We are too soft. If you get caught with a knife, you need to do time.
But would that actually change behaviour of young people?
I think it would, and I think also if they knew police were there, they would do something. If they get threatened by a gang member or if they get threatened with a knife, they know that the police is around the corner.
And I'm assuming the majority of these are boys, or are we seeing girls carrying knives?
It's mainly boys.
It's mainly boys.
It's mainly boys.
So we are obviously talking predominantly about girls and women in society, but obviously this goes across the board, doesn't it? The fact is that we're seeing Britain. I've never seen a country like this anymore. You know, in terms of the way this country has changed. In fact, Colin Sutton talked about this, retired DCI Sutton talked about this. We just don't see the visible policing that we once saw, and particularly when I was growing up, you know, we saw police on the streets and it acted as a deterrent.
Of course, but it also was a security blanket. You know, when you see a policeman, you know that they're there. And as I said, you know, when I used to call 999 when I was little, I remember my parents leaving me alone and me just hearing a noise and being petrified, and I'd call 999 and they'd come. But I've experienced, and you talk about, and I know I mentioned the boys with the knives, but I'm mentioning it in terms of the mothers who worry.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about women and girls, but the mothers worry so much because all these boys carry knives. So it's the mother of boys that suffer with worry and pain.
And you spoke about this in the press conference earlier, where you said you called the police, they said they were too busy. You then had to do all the work yourself.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So they were mugged close to our house. And they've suffered a few. One was mugged at knife point, but another time they were targeted many times, and the police just didn't have enough resources to do the detective work. So I had a baby at the time. I put him in my baby carrier, and I followed them. I followed them to the estates. I went to all the shops that sell fake phones, and I said, if you sell this, the local ones, if you sell these phones, you're an accomplice. I'm watching you. And I took, of course they all wear balaclavas and COVID masks, but the shoes are quite telling. So I took photos of their shoes.
How enterprising.
And I gave it to the police. And they, you know, the problem is that the youth in this country, they don't get much, right? So they would be released quite quickly. But I did manage to get them banned from the area, which is a criminal behaviour order, which I want to see more of.
Yes.
You know, it's a great tool for low-level crime that is not utilised enough because the police are so under-resourced.
And just going back to that about visible policing, one of the other things that retired DCI Sutton said was the closure of police stations. I think he's onto something here, which is when you had an incident, if your phone was stolen or whatever, you could walk into the local police station. You can't do that. And certainly in East London, where I spend a lot of time, there are no police stations.
No, I mean, the police station is very far from me, where I am. And I've spoken to my Safer Neighbourhood team, and they've told me they cannot patrol because they need a place to touch down, what they call a touchdown, and they don't have that. It's too far. And actually, I proposed something when I was in the council. I actually spoke to a landlord in my area. There's so many disused shops, and I said, why can't the police rent one of these shops? Even a short, or to have a presence on the high streets, instead of them being disused. They could rent them and have a touchdown for police. I spoke to a big developer who said he was willing to do that.
And what the
police were delighted. They'd love that.
And why has no one ever thought of this before? Is it because actually it's common sense?
It's common sense. And the thing is, we're ruled by people who don't live in our world, right? You've got two Britons now. You've got the Britain where ministers and MP live, where they're protected by the police. And then you've got the one where we live, crime-ridden streets, next to asylum hotels. And that's the one most of us live in.
As we take this conversation forward, what do you think is missing from the political conversation? You mentioned the fact is we're living in sort of two-tier Britain where you've got two sections of society actually inhabiting the same country. It seems to me that Westminster just doesn't listen. They are starting to see the impact that Reform UK is having. They're starting to get worried about the sorts of thing we're addressing and the issues that we are facing and the solutions we're offering.
You know what's missing? Is a leader who actually cares, and a leader who will do whatever it takes. And that's why I joined Reform, because Nigel is the only leader in politics today that has that skill and that has that will, that drive. He is unflinchable.
And was it Nigel himself, the man himself, that made you join the party, or was it the culmination of Nigel leading the party which espouses common sense values?
I've been watching Nigel for years, and when I watch him, I agree with everything he says. And I you know, I'm like, and also I just think he's the only one that actually speaks.
Make communities safer.
More police, prosecute every crime. Shoplifting is corrosive on our communities, and it's being ignored. Build more prisons, leave the ECHR. And take crime seriously. You know, it is a national emergency, like Sarah said, and we need a government who recognises that.
I couldn't agree more. Laila, really good to see you. Thank you ever so much for coming in. That's Councillor Laila Cunningham. Well, sadly, that brings us to a close. Thank you very much to all four of my very powerful, wonderful guests on today's show. And these conversations have really shown why Reform UK is connecting with so many people, especially women, who feel completely ignored on the issues that matter most, particularly, of course, the safety of women and girls on Britain's streets. It is now abundantly clear that change is not just needed, it is urgent. Britain is lawless, and Britain needs reform. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, from all of us here, goodbye.